beautiful stars. I wanna drive a faster car. Nothing can break me, no, no, nothing can break me. Try not to hold me.
Good morning, tubers. So today we're back working on the 2013 Dodge Dart. I've acquired the new core support. I've got a new radiator that came in, and a new rebar or crash bar for up front. I've got the new tie rod that we're going to install. The problem that I'm running into, once I chased the new core support, I did try to fit it into the car to see how badly off the frame rails were in the front end, and the the passenger side one is off probably by 3/4 of an inch towards the driver's side, or there's about a 3/4 of an inch sway towards the driver's side. So what I can tell is it looks like the driver's side frame rail is pretty straight. I measured with my tram gauge on the car that the core support came off of, and the measurement from the strut tower to the top of the frame rail matches up. It's pretty darn close. So I think the only rail that's kind of bent in is the passenger side rail, and it's bent towards the driver's side. And I don't know, if I'm guessing maybe 3/4 of an inch and 1/2 an inch. I'm not really sure. It's off. It's off enough where I can't get the bolts in to mount up the core support. That being said, everything else seems to line up, so I think it's just that frame rail. So I guess some of the delay in video has been myself trying to figure out what I'm going to do with this and how I'm going to rectify this. I'm pretty far into the car at this point. I watch guys all the time fix stuff way worse than this. I'm very mechanically inclined, and I feel like I could fix this if I had the right tools. Unfortunately, I don't have all of the right tools, so that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm trying to figure out where I want to go with it. I did talk to a local body shop, and he didn't seem to want anything to do with it, unless it was an insurance job. So it's probably going to be something that I have to fix myself. I've looked at getting a portable frame machine. I've looked at sectioning in a new piece of frame rail, pulling it straight, and then putting in a new piece of frame rail, which I feel like I could do. I have a MIG. I have access to a very good, commercial body spot welder. So stay tuned for that. I'm not sure where that's going to go yet. That's kind of what's holding me up at this point. Today we're going to work on getting the new inner tie rod end on the passenger side of the car, so that I can get that corner suspension back together. So if I do decide I want to take it somewhere and have somebody work on it, or roll it out to try and straighten it and then section it, we can do so. This is our new inner tie rod kit, and I call it a kit. This is the part number 68164072AB. The reason I call it a kit is because it comes with this new boot here, which shockingly you can't buy by itself. Not one that fits this car that I found. It's entirely possible that there's a universal one that'll fit this car, but I haven't found one. I bought one or two from Napa. I couldn't figure it out. So unfortunately, what I ended up having to do was suck it up and buy the whole kit. Now, I had already bought a new inner tie rod from Rock Auto, Moog. This also came from Rock Auto. I didn't realize that it was, going to be a problem to get a boot for the steering rack in this car. So this is the new OEM inner tie rod end for the Dodge Dart. This is the boot and the jam nuts and stuff that come with it. So this comes as a kit. I think I paid $89 from Rock Auto for this portion of the build. It is kind of pricey. It's actually cheaper. You can, I take that back. You can actually buy the boot, Rock Auto or East Coast Moparts or mymoparparts.com. You can get this boot. It's $100 just for the boot. It is cheaper to buy the whole package together. I have no idea how that makes sense, or why that makes sense, or who thought that was a good idea, but that's how it is. This guy here is this is the new OEM end link for the passenger side of the car, and this, if you remember from previous videos, I'll post which one it is. I don't remember off the top of my head. This was bent like a pretzel. So this kit I think this was about $37 from one of the Mopar sites that I'll put in the description. It is part number 68164037AA, and this guy came from mymoparparts.com. Comes with the 2 new bolts and the new end link. Unfortunately, the last time in one of the last videos I'll post, I think it's the very last one that I did, I talked about doing the tie rod, and I shot some footage of starting to take it apart, and when I went to use my Lyle tie rod tool that I got from Summit, it did not have the right size crow foot. This is called the crow's foot. So I had to, what I did was I took my vernier caliper and I took the new tie rod end that I had, or inner tie rod that I had from Moog, and I measured it, and it came out to about 1.5 inches. So I was able to find on Amazon this Lyle 1.5 crow's foot. It's part number 46160, and that will allow me to take the inner tie rod out of the steering rack on the Dodge Dart. So you want to count the revolutions when you take the tie rod off and the jam nut off. Alright, so the tie rod came off in 20.5 turns, and the jam nut came off in 27.5 or 27.5 turns. Now we should be able to work on getting this boot off here, which is going to be fun, because it's probably on there pretty good. Since this boot is damaged pretty heavily, I think what we're going to end up doing is I'm just going to cut it because I'm not fighting with it. There we go. There's the wrecked tie rod bellows. So now, you can see it's just the inner tie rod end. We'll have to go find the tie rod tool and get that undone. You can see how bent this is. I can't get the tool over. Well, I can, I just can't get it all the way down. So we're gonna cut this so that I can get the tool on. Crow's foot. Hopefully this is the right one. There we go. Now we should be able to slide the, so you have your, we'll call it a socket, and you have your crow's foot. The crow's foot has these tabs on it here, and you slide it in to the socket and you latch it in place. Then you can slide it over the tie rod like this, or the inner tie rod, and I'll find my breaker bar here. Alright, there we go. Just crack it loose and voila, your broken tie rod, a broken inner tie rod, is now loose and off. So you can see that is the broken or the bad tie rod, inner tie rod. In our new inner tie rod here, like so. Now you can take your inner tie rod tool here And we will basically follow the reverse procedure. So we'll put this in like that. And I've got to look up the torque specs, but I'm just going to snug it down for the moment. That is how you change the tie rod, the inner tie rod, on a Dodge Dart. We'll have to put the boot on. I'll cover that. In this kit, you get your boot, you get grease, you get a one-time use clamp, you get a spring clamp to go on the end towards the outer tie rod, and you get a new jam nut. Couple of things here. First, there's no instructions, but I would assume we got to fill the inner tie rod with this grease, and then we're going to take a little bit of white grease and just put it around the lip here, because this will help it go over the lip of the steering shaft. Same thing in this side as well. It just kind of helps it slide. It's not going to hurt anything. So we're going to get some white grease and do that. This is the stuff I use. Shake it up a little bit. Sometimes it gets a little watery. Literally just put a little dab. Yeah, see, that's what I mean. It gets a little watery. That's better. So just put a little around the lip here. Just kind of helps seat things. So we'll do the same thing down here, around this edge. Just kind of helps it slide over the inner tie rod. We're gonna take our grease here. That's already pretty greased up, but we're just gonna squirt a little bit more in there. I assume that that's what that's for. There's no instructions coming with it. This is the first time I've done an inner tie rod. Then we're gonna take our boot here. Actually, that's not true. I did one on the Mustang. I think there's a video of it. We're gonna take our boot here, and we are gonna slide it over. And at this point, you may have to crawl under the car to kind of reach your arm up there and get that on. There we go. All right. So now we've got our boot on the rack. The tie rod is in, and now we can put the clamps on. We can put the jam nut on, and then we can put our new outer tie rod on. And once we do that, we can also replace our ABS sensor here that got broken in the crash, and the end link. And that will pretty much complete the front suspension in this corner, at least that I'm aware of at the moment. We're going to take our outer clamp, slide that over that. We're going to take our jam nut, which needs to go on 27.5 turns. So we're going to put it on. Let's see if I can figure out how to mark this so we can see it. I'm just going to take a permanent marker. We're going to make a line right down the middle, and we got the threads caught. So there's one turn. Our boot on the inner tie rod end and the steering rack. We're going to take this clamp, and we're going to take these special pliers. We're going to run to the car. I'm going to slip this on over the boot, over the steering rack. We're going to take our pliers and we're going to crimp this. These are one-time use clamps, and what this does is it squeezes. I don't know if the camera will show it, and I'm not going to do it because I only have one clamp, but it squeezes this piece right here, and it snugs down the boot onto the steering rack. So this is your outer clamp for the outer part of the inner tie rod. I'm sure there's a tool for this, and those of you that know what it's called, please leave me a comment. I just typically take a clamp like this and take a pair of channel locks and open it up, slide it over, let it go. This is basically a spring-loaded clamp. Reach in just like this, and you're going to grab
So now we've got the clamp in the tool, and we're just going to squeeze until it's snug, just like that. And so now you can see the clamp and the boot. Well, the boot will twist back and forth, but the clamp is on there holding the boot from going over the lip, just like that. So that's how that that's kind of how that works. Clamp is a little harder to show you guys, just because I don't probably have the right tool for it. And there we go. So I just took a pair of channel locks like this and just get them to the right size, open it up, slide it over. Now you've fully replaced your inner tie rod end on your 2013 Dodge Dart. This probably works for other year Dodge Darts as well. I did have to take the jam nut off, so we'll put that back on. We'll put the outer tie rod on, and then we'll start taking this end link apart and get some of this stuff in. The next part of this process of putting this front corner back together, we're going to take this ripped ABS sensor out. This is a 10 millimeter socket or bolt. It's in there really good. We're going to undo that. This hopefully will just come right out. And it is. So you can see this is the busted sensor. The sensor itself is probably okay. There was a light on the dash for this, so hopefully that corrects that problem. The rest of the harness is up here. We've got to get this guy out of the way. We've got to pull this grommet out here. So we'll stick our trim tool behind there. That was a little more elaborate than oh, it's not just a regular push pin one. It's actually got two little ears on it, so you want to be careful pulling that out. Disconnect it. Lots of dirt in there. You can see this end. Oh, actually, the new one actually comes with a new piece, so that's fine. So if we broke that, it wasn't the end of the world. Harness from the car, and we're going to plug it in like so. Get it to latch in place here, hopefully. There we go. And we're going to push that into place there. We're going to put the grommet back into place there. Comes out of the car's harness, loops down, makes a U, loops back up, and then connects onto the strut here. Sensor itself, wiggle that guy back in. I'm going to lower the torque on that because I do not want to snap that bolt in the knuckle. That would not be good. There we go. All right, ABS sensor has been changed on this car now. This is our new outer tie rod. It's Moog ES 801128. And had I known all the aggravation that I would have went through with the inner one, I would have probably bought a Mopar one as well. So this comes with a new grease fitting, a cotter pin, and a nut. The grease fitting here happens to be a 7 millimeter grease fitting, or Zerk. I think it's a Zerk fitting as well. We'll have to get it started here in the top of the tie rod. And we'll take a wrench and get it fully threaded into place here. See, the fitting is now in the top of the tie rod. So this will have to go back on the inner tie rod end. We'll spin it around 20 times. That's what we counted to pull it off. Let's get it started. 1. End link bolts can be
tricky to break free once they've been on the car a while. What I did on this one is I took a pair of vice grips and I took my breaker bar. It's a 5/8 socket, and I've just broken it loose, so we'll pull that off here. Just to give you a little bit better of an idea of how I got this bolt off, because it was stuck on there. I took a pair of these vice grip pliers and I just pinched the ball. This is just a long ball with threads on the end of it that moves back and forth, and so a lot of times if you try to just put a ratchet or something on it, it just spins. So that's how I've stopped it from spinning. Last but not least for the day, we're going to take our end link and we're going to pull the two nuts off of it. Maybe this one's on a little bit harder than it should be, so we'll do that with the wrench. It's going to go in like this. We're going to tighten it down and pop the tie rod in, and the front suspension will be back together. And the reason I'm using a wrench on this and not a ratchet is because in the center here, if this starts to turn, it is an Allen. It's an Allen socket. So we'll go as far as we can here without needing it. Okay, that's snug down there. All right, new end link is in place. Now we can take our tie rod over here, pop this guy back in place, and we'll put the bolt on the bottom and the cotter pin in, and the front end on this car is back together. Guys, if you like these videos on this 2013 Dart, please like and subscribe below. Leave me a comment, thumbs up, thumbs down, something you want to see, let me know. I have more videos coming. It's just taking me time to get this car back together. Unfortunately, what I've run up against is the frame rail issue, which I spoke about earlier. Hopefully we're going to figure that out. I'm kind of continuing on with the car at this point just because it seems silly to throw a whole car away just for a little frame rail that's bent a little bit out of place. It's not even that much. So stay tuned, guys. If you like the videos, please feel free to subscribe, like, etc., comment, send me a note.